The shelter stood quietly at the edge of a small town. It was not a grand place with shining walls or wide-open yards. It was simple, a little old with narrow cages and the smell of animals in the air. The workers did their best to keep everything clean and safe, but the shelter was always full. People from the town often came here, some to adopt, some just to look. The sound of barking, meowing, and children laughing often filled the rooms. In one corner of the shelter was a large cage where a German shepherd named Rex sat. He was not a puppy. His body was strong, his back broad, and his eyes dark and deep. He had once belonged to a family who moved away, leaving him behind. Nobody really knew the full story. Some said the family did not want the responsibility anymore. Others said they had gone too far to take him. All anyone knew was that Rex had been brought to the shelter and left there, waiting. At first he believed someone would come for him. Each time the door of the shelter opened, his ears would stand tall and he would wait for the familiar footsteps. But weeks passed, then months. Every day families walked past his cage. They bent down to pet the small puppies that yipped with excitement, wagging tiny tails. They picked up kittens with big eyes that fit in the palms of their hands. Papers were signed, doors were opened, and new beginnings were made. But Rex was never the choice. Some people stopped to look at him, but most only for a moment. "He looks too big," they whispered. Others said he must be too old or he doesn't look friendly. Rex never barked wildly like the puppies. He did not jump against the cage or beg for attention. He just sat quietly watching with sad, waiting eyes. Sometimes when someone looked a little longer, he wagged his tail slowly, but that was not enough. They wanted excitement, playfulness, and small paws. They wanted a beginning that felt easy, not a dog with a past. The workers at the shelter noticed his loneliness. They cared for him, gave him food, cleaned his cage, and even spoke to him softly. One worker, a woman named Maria, often stopped by to scratch behind his ears. "You're a good boy, Rex," she whispered. He leaned into her hand, thankful for the small kindness. But Maria also worried. She knew big dogs like Rex were the hardest to place. People thought of them as dangerous or too much to handle. Puppies found homes quickly. Older dogs, especially large ones, stayed longer and longer until hope faded. Every night when the shelter grew quiet, Rex curled in the corner of his cage. He listened to the wind outside and the distant sound of cars passing on the road. He dreamed of grass under his paws, of chasing a ball, of lying near someone's feet at the end of the day. He did not understand why he had been left. He only knew he was waiting for someone who never came. The other animals seemed to sense it too. The puppies played and barked, full of life, not noticing Rex's heavy silence. The cats curled together, sometimes looking toward him with slow blinks as if offering silent comfort. But Rex stayed in his corner, watching the door that never opened for him. One day a young couple came to the shelter with their children. The room filled with laughter as the children pressed their faces against the glass cages. "Can we play with that one?" a boy asked, pointing at a golden retriever pup that tumbled over its own feet. The parents smiled, agreeing to let the children play. Everyone in the room turned to watch as the puppy was carried out, its tail wagging madly. No one noticed Rex, who stood up hopefully for just a moment before sitting down again, unseen. This scene repeated itself day after day. Hope rose in him like a flame whenever the shelter door opened. His ears lifted, his tail gave a small wag, and his eyes brightened. But the flame always faded when footsteps passed by, when smiles and hands reached for smaller cages, when the clipboards filled with names that were not his. Slowly, Rex's hope dimmed. He still wagged his tail for Maria, still pressed his nose against her hand when she came, but less often for others. It hurt too much to hope and be forgotten. Yet there was something about Rex that the workers admired. He was calm. He never snapped, never barked angrily, never caused trouble. He carried himself with quiet dignity, as if he knew that losing his composure would only make things worse. Even in his sadness, there was patience. The workers often said, "He's such a good boy. If only people could see his heart." But hearts were hard to see through metal bars and tired eyes. On rainy days, when the shelter felt even colder and lonelier, Rex would sit by the front of his cage and stare out the small window at the gray sky. The drops tapped against the glass and he would rest his head on his paws, letting out a soft sigh. Maria sometimes brought him a blanket, folding it neatly in the corner for him to lie on. He accepted it quietly, grateful, but he always lifted his head whenever the door opened. Even on the darkest days, some small part of him refused to stop believing that someone, someday, would see him. The town outside the shelter moved on with its daily life. Children went to school, families gathered for dinners, and friends met in parks. Few thought of the animals waiting in cages, except those who came with the intention of adopting. Rex was just another face behind bars to most, a large dog that looked serious and unapproachable. But inside he was just waiting for kindness. The shelter staff began to wonder how much longer he would last there. Time was not always kind to animals in shelters. The longer they stayed, the less likely they were to be chosen. Yet none of them could imagine giving up on Rex. They hoped, prayed even, that someone would come. Someone who could look past his size and quietness. Someone who could see what was hidden beneath. As the days turned into weeks again, Rex continued his routine. He ate when food was given. He walked quietly when taken outside. He returned to his cage without a fuss. But every evening he waited by the door, his dark eyes steady, his ears rising at the sound of footsteps, then falling again when the sound passed by. He had become part of the shelter, almost like the walls and cages themselves, always there, always overlooked. Still, a story was waiting to unfold. The world has a way of surprising even those who have given up. And while Rex did not know it, the next time the shelter door opened, it would not be just another family looking for a playful puppy. It would be someone small, someone pure, someone who saw not with quick judgment but with a gentle heart, someone who would change his life in a way he could never have imagined. The morning was bright when the shelter opened its doors again. Sunlight poured through the windows, warming the floors that usually felt cold. The staff moved quickly, filling bowls with food, cleaning cages, and preparing for visitors. Saturdays were always busier. Families often came in with children, and the sound of laughter and chatter mixed with the usual barking of excited dogs. Rex lifted his head slowly from the blanket Maria had given him the night before. He stretched, his muscles stiff from the hard floor, and yawned quietly. Like always, he looked toward the main door. He had learned the sound of the latch, the squeak of the hinges, the rush of footsteps that followed. He knew it by heart, though most times it brought nothing for him. That morning, a family stepped inside. A man, a woman, and their little daughter. The parents looked tired, the kind of tired that came from busy weeks of work. They had not come with plans to adopt. They only wanted their daughter to see the animals, maybe learn about kindness and caring. The girl, Lily, had been asking for weeks to visit the shelter. She loved animals, though her family lived in a small home and weren't sure if they could take care of one. The moment they entered, Lily's eyes widened. She pulled at her mother's hand, pointing at the rows of cages filled with wagging tails and curious eyes. "Look, Mama. Puppies," she said, almost skipping forward. Her parents smiled, letting her go ahead as they spoke to one of the workers. The room was full of sound. Puppies barked eagerly, trying to catch Lily's attention. Cats meowed softly from their corner, stretching against their cages. Most children would have run straight to the smallest puppy, but Lily's steps slowed. Her eyes drifted past the wagging tails, past the playful paws scratching at the metal. Something else caught her heart. In the far corner, sitting quietly, was Rex. His large frame made him look serious, but his eyes were soft. They were not filled with wild excitement like the puppies. Instead, they held a kind of sadness, deep and quiet, like he had been waiting too long. Unlike everyone else who had walked past him before, Lily did not hurry away. She stopped. She tilted her head just as Rex tilted his. It was as though they were studying each other in silence. For a moment, she didn't hear the barking or the voices. All she saw was the lonely dog who didn't push forward, who didn't jump against the cage to be noticed. Slowly, Lily stepped closer. She crouched down in front of the cage, her small knees pressing against the floor. Her parents were still busy talking with the staff, not noticing where she had gone. Lily leaned forward and whispered softly, "Hi, big guy. Are you lonely?" Rex blinked, his ears twitching at the sound of her gentle voice. He wasn't used to being spoken to like that. Most people passed by with quick words, if any at all, but this voice was soft, caring, and innocent. His tail gave a small, uncertain wag. The movement made Lily's face brighten. She giggled lightly, pressing her tiny fingers through the bars. Rex hesitated for only a second before lowering his head, pressing his nose gently against her hand. It was not rough or eager. It was calm, careful, almost grateful. Lily's eyes lit up. He likes me, she whispered with excitement. By then, her parents had noticed she wasn't looking at the puppies. They walked over quickly, worried for a moment. Her father frowned. Sweetheart, maybe stay back. That dog is big. He wasn't angry, just cautious. A German shepherd looked too strong, too powerful to be near their little girl. But Lily shook her head. No, Daddy, he's not scary. He's just sad. She kept her hand near Rex, who had now pressed even closer, his tail wagging a little stronger. The shelter worker, Maria, came over and smiled at the sight. She had cared for Rex every day, but this was different. He had never shown this much affection to a visitor before. It's okay, Maria said gently. He's a good boy. He just hasn't found someone who sees him. The parents exchanged glances. They had come only for a short visit, never expecting something like this. The mother knelt beside Lily, watching Rex carefully. She noticed how his eyes softened every time he looked at her daughter. There was no fear, no aggression, only longing, see? Lily said, her voice full of certainty. He wants a friend. Other families walked by, pointing at the smaller dogs and kittens. But Lily stayed right there, unwilling to move. It was as if she had found something no one else could see. She spoke to Rex as if he could understand every word. Don't worry, she whispered. You're not invisible to me. I see you. Maria felt her throat tighten at those words. For weeks she had worried Rex would never be chosen, that his days in the shelter would stretch into a hopeless waiting. But this little girl, with her gentle heart, had given him what no one else had, attention, kindness, and the simple belief that he mattered. The longer they stayed there, the clearer it became that something special was happening. Rex, who had once sat quietly with little hope, was now leaning forward, his body pressed against the bars, his tail moving with steady rhythm. He did not bark or demand. He simply stayed close to the girl, as though afraid she might disappear like everyone else had. Lily looked up at her parents with pleading eyes. Can we take him home, please? Her father hesitated. Lily, he's not a puppy. He's big. He might be too much for us. But Lily shook her head firmly. He's perfect. He just needs love. I can give him that. The room grew quiet for a moment as everyone watched the small girl sitting in front of the large dog. Her words were simple, but they carried weight far beyond her age. The parents saw it too. The gentle way Rex responded, the calmness in his body, the spark of life that had been missing for so long. Maria placed a hand on the father's shoulder. She's right. This dog is special. He's been waiting for someone exactly like her. The father sighed, looking at his wife. They both knew their daughter's heart was pure. They also knew dogs required care, food, space, and time. Yet standing there, watching Rex and Lily, it felt less like a decision and more like destiny. The mother smiled softly. Maybe this is a sign, she whispered. Rex pressed his nose harder against the bars, his eyes fixed on Lily as though begging not to be left behind again. Lily reached her hand as far as she could, whispering again, Don't worry. I'll come back. It was a promise, simple but strong. A promise that would soon change everything for both of them. The shelter was louder than usual that day. Puppies barked as families passed by their cages. Cats meowed from their corner and children laughed as they pointed at animals. Yet in one small space near the back, everything felt different. It was quiet there, almost calm. That was where Lily sat on the floor, her little hand stretched through the bars, her eyes locked on Rex. For weeks, Rex had watched people walk past him. They rarely gave him more than a glance. But this girl, this small, gentle child, was different. She didn't look away. She didn't call him scary or old. Instead, she whispered kind words that only he could hear. Rex leaned closer, his nose pressing softly against her fingers. The feeling of her tiny hand gave him comfort, a warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. The workers stood nearby, quietly amazed. Rex had always been calm but distant. He rarely wagged his tail for visitors. But now with Lily it was wagging steadily, a rhythm of hope returning. Maria, who had cared for Rex from the first day, felt her heart tighten. She had never seen him this way. Lily's parents watched closely, still cautious. Her father frowned slightly, whispering to his wife, I don't know. He's so big. What if he's not safe? But her mother shook her head gently. Look at him. He's gentle with her. He's not pulling or barking. He's just grateful. Lily turned to them, her eyes shining. He's not scary. He just needs someone to love him. And I love him already. Her words were soft, but they carried power. Everyone around could feel the weight of them. Maria nodded, her voice calm. You should know something about Rex. He has been here longer than most of the animals. Families always pass him by, but I've never seen him react like this before. It's like he's been waiting for her. Rex pressed his head harder against the bars, closing his eyes as Lily's fingers scratched gently near his ears. It was a simple touch, but to him it felt like a promise. He had once believed he was invisible, but now someone truly saw him. Can I open the cage for just a minute? Maria asked carefully, looking at the parents. You'll see for yourself. The father hesitated, but Lily's mother placed her hand on his arm. Let's try. Just for a moment. Maria unlocked the cage slowly. The door creaked open and Rex stepped out cautiously. He didn't rush or jump. Instead, he lowered his head and walked straight to Lily, sitting down right in front of her. His eyes stayed fixed on hers as if to say, I'm yours if you'll have me. Lily giggled happily and wrapped her small arms gently around his neck. Rex didn't move, didn't resist. He stayed completely still, allowing her to hug him as though he had been waiting his entire life for that exact moment. The parents stared, stunned. He trusts her, the mother whispered. And she trusts him, Maria added softly. Other visitors in the shelter began to notice too. Some stopped whispering to each other. They had walked past Rex earlier, thinking he was too serious, too intimidating. But now, seeing him with the little girl, their opinions shifted. He wasn't scary at all. He was gentle, calm, and full of love. Lily leaned back and looked up at her parents. See, he's my friend. He's not dangerous. He just needed me. Her father rubbed the back of his neck, still unsure but deeply moved. Sweetheart, dogs like him. They need a lot of care. Food, walks, training. I can help, Lily said quickly. I'll take care of him. Please, Daddy, please don't let him stay here. He'll be so sad. Her mother knelt down beside her. Lily, adopting a dog is a big decision. We can't just do it because we feel sorry for him. It has to be right for us, too. Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she stayed firm. It is right. I know it in my heart. He belongs with us. Rex seemed to sense her emotions. He leaned forward, licking her hand gently, almost as if to comfort her. It made her giggle through her tears, hugging him again. The father sighed heavily, glancing at Maria. What do you think? Honestly, Maria didn't hesitate. I think this dog has been waiting for her, and I think she's been waiting for him too. The silence that followed was heavy. Everyone seemed to be holding their breath. Then slowly the father's expression softened. He crouched down in front of Rex, studying him closely. For a long moment he just watched the dog sitting calmly, his tail brushing the floor. Then carefully he reached out his hand. Rex sniffed it gently before pressing his nose against the man's palm. It was a gesture of trust, simple but clear. The father exhaled deeply. Well, I guess he's not so scary after all. Lily's face lit up like the sun. Does that mean we can take him home? Her mother smiled, still cautious but moved. We'll talk about it. But I think maybe this was meant to be. The family spent the next hour with Rex in the small play area behind the shelter. They watched as he followed Lily closely, never leaving her side. When she threw a ball, he brought it back carefully, placing it right at her feet. When she sat down, he laid beside her, resting his head on her lap. It was clear to everyone who watched that something special had begun. By the time they were ready to leave, Lily didn't want to say goodbye. She hugged Rex tightly, whispering in his ear, Don't be sad. I'll come back for you. I promise. Rex stood at the gate as they walked away, his eyes following her until the door closed. For the first time in months, there was a spark of hope inside him. He believed her promise. Maria patted his back gently as she led him back to his cage. You'll see, boy. That little girl might just be your miracle. And deep down, everyone in the shelter knew it too. Something incredible had just begun. The night after their visit to the shelter, Lily could not stop talking about Rex. At dinner, while her parents tried to discuss their day, Lily's words kept circling back to the big German shepherd with the sad eyes. He needs us, she said softly as she pushed peas around her plate. He doesn't have anyone else. Her father sighed, setting down his fork. Lily, we didn't plan for a dog. A dog like Rex is a big responsibility. He needs training, food, exercise, things we're not sure we can manage. But Lily's eyes filled with determination. I can help. I'll feed him, I'll play with him, I'll walk him. Please, Daddy, he was so gentle. Didn't you see how he looked at me? Her mother glanced at her husband. She had seen it too. The way Rex pressed close to Lily, the way his tail wagged for her and no one else. It had been different, undeniable. Maybe we should think about it, she said softly. Lily clasped her hands together as hope returned to her face. Please think fast. He's waiting for me. That night, when Lily went to bed, she whispered a quiet promise to herself. I'll get you out of there, Rex. I won't let you be alone again. She drifted off to sleep with a smile, dreaming of running through the park with her new friend by her side. The next morning, her parents woke early. Over coffee, they had the talk they had avoided for years. They had always told themselves that having a dog was too much work. But seeing Rex with their daughter had shaken something inside them. He had not been wild, not even restless. He had been calm, gentle, protective, like he already knew Lily was his person. Her father rubbed his temples. I can't believe I'm even considering this. But maybe you're right. Maybe it's not about us this time. Maybe it's about her. And him. Her mother smiled softly. I think they belong to each other. And sometimes you don't choose family. Family chooses you. By the afternoon, the decision was made. They would go back to the shelter. When the family walked in, Rex was lying in his cage, his head resting on his paws. The moment he heard Lily's voice calling, Rex, his ears shot up. He leaped to his feet, tail wagging so hard it thumped against the metal bars. His eyes lit up with hope that had been gone for months. Maria hurried over, smiling widely. You came back. I knew you would. Lily's father nodded. We'd like to start the adoption process. For a moment the room went quiet, and then Maria's face brightened with joy. Oh, this is wonderful news. He's waited so long for this. The paperwork was brought out. Forms were signed. Questions were asked and answers were given. Rex stood patiently in the play area, while Lily hugged him again and again. He seemed to know something important was happening, that this was the moment his life was about to change forever. When the last signature was done, Maria knelt beside Rex, patting his back gently. You're going home, boy. No more waiting. The cage door opened and Rex stepped out, not in a rush, not with wild energy, but with steady grace. He walked straight to Lily, lowering his head so she could wrap her arms around his neck once more. The bond between them was clear to everyone in the room. Some of the staff clapped quietly, others wiped away tears. They had all seen dogs come and go, but this one felt different. This one felt like destiny. The parents led Rex outside to the car. At first he hesitated, sniffing the fresh air, unsure if this was real. Then Lily tugged his leash gently and said, Come on, Rex, this is your new adventure. He climbed into the back seat, sitting close to her as if he had always belonged there. The drive home was filled with excitement. Lily kept one hand resting on Rex's fur and he stayed pressed against her side, calm and trusting. Her father glanced at the rearview mirror several times, almost in disbelief. He's behaving better than I expected, he admitted. He just needed someone to believe in him, Lily said proudly. When they arrived at the house, Rex stepped out carefully, sniffing the grass and flowers as if discovering a new world. Lily ran ahead, opening the front door wide. This is your home now, Rex, come on. Rex entered cautiously, his nails clicking against the floor. He explored slowly, tail wagging as he moved from room to room. He paused by the couch, sniffed the rug, and then walked straight to Lily's bedroom. She giggled as he climbed onto the carpet beside her bed and lay down as if declaring, This is where I'll stay. The family laughed softly, touched by how quickly he seemed to settle in. That evening they ate dinner together while Rex lay near Lily's chair, his eyes following her every move. When she dropped a piece of bread by accident, he didn't snatch it up. He waited until she picked it up and handed it to him with a smile. Good boy, she said. Later that night, as the family prepared for bed, Rex lay quietly in Lily's room, his head resting near her pillow. She stroked his fur gently, whispering, See, I told you I'd bring you home. He sighed, closing his eyes, his whole body finally relaxing. For the first time in months, he was not waiting anymore. He had found his place. Her father stood at the doorway, watching the two of them. His wife joined him, slipping her hand into his. Look at them, she whispered. How could we have said no? He smiled faintly. I think we didn't choose him. He chose us. Downstairs, the house was quiet. Outside, the stars shone brightly in the night sky. Inside, a little girl and a once-forgotten dog began their first night together as family. The shelter had seen many adoptions before, but everyone there would remember the day Rex went home. They would remember the little girl who looked at him when no one else did, the family who opened their hearts, and the dog who had finally found his forever home. For Rex, it wasn't just the end of waiting. It was the beginning of love, trust, and the kind of bond that never breaks. The days after Rex's adoption were filled with new beginnings. For the first time in a long while, Rex woke up not to the sound of barking cages, but to the soft voice of Lily calling. "Good morning, Rex." He would lift his head from the rug beside her bed, wag his tail, and watch her face light up. Every morning started this way, with joy and warmth. The first week at home was full of discovery. Rex explored every corner of the house. He sniffed the living room couch, padded carefully through the kitchen, and sat proudly in the backyard, his ears alert to the birds chirping above. The neighbors were surprised to see such a big dog suddenly appear in the family's yard. At first some looked nervous, but soon they saw how gentle Rex was with Lily. He followed her everywhere, never leaving her side, always calm and steady. One afternoon, Lily and her mother walked Rex to the nearby park. Children ran around, some chasing balls, others playing on swings. When they saw Rex, some of them paused, unsure. "He looks scary," one boy whispered. But Lily shook her head firmly. "He's not scary at all. He's my best friend. He's just big because he's strong, and he uses that strength to protect." To prove it, she threw a small ball across the grass. Rex trotted after it, picked it up gently, and carried it back, placing it carefully at her feet. The children's eyes widened in surprise. Soon they were laughing, taking turns tossing the ball for Rex. He played calmly, never rough, always careful. By the end of the afternoon, everyone was petting him, scratching his ears, and giggling at how soft his fur felt. Word spread quickly around the neighborhood. "That big dog is actually so gentle," people said. "He's different when he's with the little girl." Rex, once ignored by everyone, was now loved by many. But still, his heart belonged to Lily most of all. At night, when the family gathered in the living room, Rex always lay close to Lily's feet. If she moved, he lifted his head to follow. If she laughed, his tail wagged. If she was sad, he pressed his nose into her hand until she smiled again. He had become her shadow, her protector, and her friend. One evening, her father sat on the couch watching them together. "You know," he said quietly, "I wasn't sure about this at first, but I think Rex is the best thing that's happened to us." Her mother nodded. "He's teaching her responsibility. Look how she cares for him. She feeds him, brushes him, even makes sure he has water before she drinks her own." Lily overheard and smiled proudly, hugging Rex tightly. "He's family now. He'll never be lonely again." Rex sighed happily, resting his head against her shoulder as though he understood every word. The shelter workers didn't forget him either. Maria often told his story to new visitors. "There was a time no one looked at him," she explained. "He sat in that cage for months waiting. But one little girl saw what no one else could see, and now he has the life he deserves." People would listen, touched by the story, and many chose to give other overlooked animals a chance too. Rex had become a symbol of hope for the shelter. As weeks turned into months, Rex continued to thrive. His coat grew shinier, his eyes brighter, his steps stronger. He loved his new home, but he loved Lily most of all. When she played in the yard, he watched closely. When she went to school, he waited by the door until she returned. When she did her homework, he lay beside her as if studying too. One day, Lily's school had a show and tell. Children were allowed to bring something special from home. Some brought toys, others brought books. But Lily stood proudly in front of the class with Rex at her side. "This is my dog Rex," she said with a big smile. "He was in a shelter for a long time because people thought he was scary. But he's not. He's kind, he's gentle, and he's my best friend. Everyone ignored him, but I didn't. I saw his heart." The classroom grew quiet for a moment. Then her teacher clapped softly. "That is a beautiful story, Lily. Thank you for sharing it." The children gathered around Rex, petting him carefully, realizing he was not frightening at all. He wagged his tail, enjoying the attention but always keeping his eyes on Lily. That night, when Lily told her parents about her day, her father smiled. "You're not just helping Rex. You're teaching others not to judge too quickly. That's something even adults forget sometimes." Her mother added softly, "You changed his life, but he's changing yours too." As time went on, Lily and Rex created countless memories together. They ran through autumn leaves, splashed in puddles during spring rains, and sat quietly on the porch during warm summer evenings. Every season brought something new, but one thing never changed: the bond between them. It grew stronger every day, unshakable and pure. Neighbors began to say that girl and her dog are inseparable, and they were right. No matter where Lily went, Rex was by her side. He became known as the gentle giant of the street, admired and loved by many. But to Lily, he was not just a dog or even just a friend. He was proof that sometimes the world overlooks what is most valuable, and it takes a heart willing to see deeper to uncover true treasure. One evening, as the family sat together watching the sunset, Lily leaned against Rex, whispering softly, "You were the dog nobody wanted, but I wanted you, and now you'll never be alone again." Rex wagged his tail and licked her cheek, his way of saying thank you. He didn't need words. His loyalty, his presence, and his love said it all. For the rest of his life, Rex remained at her side, never once forgetting the day she saw him when no one else did. And Lily, growing older with him, never forgot the lesson he gave her: that sometimes love comes from the places we least expect, and it can change everything. The shelter cage was only a memory now. The lonely days were gone forever. What remained was a story of hope, kindness, and the unbreakable bond between a little girl and the dog who had once been invisible to everyone until she made him her world.